Hello, fellow Star Trek fans. Welcome back to what is going to be an incredible episode of the Clonestar Podcast. I am your host, Mike Overton, and joining me again this week is my lovely friend from Indiana, Jody. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Mike. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here, because we've got, this week we're kind of continuing our legal action. We welcome you to the Kazinsky versus Clonestar Podcast, trial part 96. The plaintiff, Rob, is well known to us in Blighty, as he's appeared in 8 million episodes of EastEnders. And of course, the legendary Dream Team. He's also appeared in Pacific Rim, Hot Pursuit, Warcraft, True Blood. But most importantly, he's now one of us. After appearing as Zeph in Star Trek Section 31, we are legally obliged to extend a warm welcome to Rob Kazinsky. Rob, thank you so much for joining us this week.
I was always one of you. I'm just now I'm one of them now. I'm on the other side of it.
Yes,
now.
You're on the other side.
Yeah,
so before we dive in, I need to hear your best Phil or Grant Mitchell impression.
Oh, crikey, man, you threw that one at me, didn't you? Do you know, I never worked with Ross, so I couldn't do one for him. I've never tried to do Steve. Like, how would you even think about? Like, hello, mum. You just gotta go breathy, ain't ya? No, proper. I couldn't. There's a reason why I did my own accent on that show.
Nailed it.
Unlike some people, I don't do accents.
Ben, we're looking at you here. We love you, but we're looking at you here. So I tell you what, let's go right back to really the beginning. Did you grow up in a creative household?
No, I grew up in a very blue-collar household. My dad was just ex-military antiques dealer. Nothing like that. My mother was, she worked at the RSPCA as a volunteer. And just was a struggling housewife that had to deal with two difficult children. So no, I was never artistic. I've got no artists in the family, no nepotism to help me, no connections in the industry, no money to fall back on or anything like that. But the difference is I grew up in Brighton. Which is, it's the gay capital of Europe. It's the center of the art scene and music. And it's like, it's an incredibly creative and artistic town, which gave me exposure to things like live performances and theater and a community that was very welcoming, stand-up and all of this kind of stuff. And that was how it kind of piqued my interest at 17 years old.
So was the dream always to be an actor?
Don't know. Not really. I don't think I really had a dream when I was a kid. I just, like most people, I didn't fit in a school. I know academia was not for me. I've already covered this many, many times, but I'm autistic, and that was not a word that existed when I was a kid. So there was no help for me at school. Dyslexia wasn't a word when I was at school. So all the people that just had problems reading, they were just called idiots, rather than, so dyslexia became a thing. I'm not dyslexic. Autism became a thing in like the last decade. And schools that could help people with these disabilities didn't exist for me. So for me, I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought I'd end up fighting or doing something in sports, maybe, I don't know. But when I was kicked out of school at 16, I went and worked front of house at the Theatre Royal in Brighton to watch some shows. And I sat there and I watched all the live shows, all the live stuff, and I just sat there thinking, wow, this is cool, but I think I could do that. I don't like that person's choice. Maybe I could give this a shot. Maybe. And one thing that I cannot abide is what ifs in life. I couldn't bear the idea of, but what if I do this? What if I don't? What if I don't? So I had to find out. I called a local theatre school that was for 3 to 11-year-olds. and had a couple of like older students, but it was for kids. It was the only one in Brighton called Cabis, and I went down there, full-time student, doing ballet with the children, learning the basics with a brilliant teacher who taught me what a stage was, what upstage was, what downstage. She sent me to drama school, and 3 years of drama school and living hell, straight into Dream Team.
And Basil Brush.
Basil Brush was first, actually. Yeah, no, straight into Basil Brush. You're absolutely right. Boom, boom, straight into Basil Brush. Which, Jodie, you are missing out on two iconic cornerstones of British television.
Basil Brush. I'm learning. I'm learning.
So for anybody who doesn't know, Basil Brush is essentially a puppet fox with a big fluffy tail. And his catchphrase is wahaha, boom, boom.
Boom, boom.
Boom, boom.
Yeah, he's Kermit. It's a Muppet, but like a one, like a really low budget rubbish one, and just told kind of risque jokes. But he's been around for decades now.
Yep.
And I actually learned more from him about acting than I have any of the Oscar winners I've worked with, and I'm not even joking about that. Like it's an absurd thing, but when you're sitting there working with somebody that's doing this, like that, and you feel ridiculous, right? Because this fox doesn't have facial expressions. It's a hand puppet.
Yep.
But after a couple of minutes, you forget that Mike is under the table doing the thing, and you just start talking to the puppet. And more than that, you start seeing expressions on the puppet.
Mm-hmm.
And there aren't any expressions, but your brain is seeing them. So what I learned was, don't demonstrate. If the dialogue is good, it's doing the work. You have to lead people. And so just having a suggestion of something is much more powerful than hammering it at someone. And it leaves the audience with somewhere to go with their imaginations. And I'm not even kidding. Basil Brush was the greatest teacher I ever had. There's your headline.
That's a powerful tool, though, to learn, I would think, as an actor, the art of verbal expression, like vocalizing that versus physically displaying that.
You have so much less to do as an actor if the dialogue is good.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then you're right, into Dream Team. And to be honest with you, I'd completely forgotten Dream Team even existed until we were doing the research. I went, oh my God, yeah.
Did you used to watch it?
On Sky One, yep.
Yeah. On Sundays, it was 8 p.m. something like that. Yeah, good old Dream Team. Was a hyper low budget Sky TV drama about professional footballers, soccer players for you.
Yeah.
The Dragons.
The Harchester Dragons. And was it the Dragons? Was that what we were?
Yeah, they were. No, it was Harchester United, and the nickname was the Dragons, wasn't it?
Who were the Dragons? Yeah, God, it's been such a long time. I completely. And it was. Oh, have we lost Mike? There he is.
No, I'm back.
And it was. I mean, it was the lowest budget production. It was blacklisted by every single production company because they didn't even pay a living wage. I lived in my car for 3 months whilst filming.
Jeez.
23-hour days, 22-hour days every day. It was hard work, but it was pretty good. It was pretty good. It was solid, and there was no one else that was going to take a kid fresh out of drama school and make them the lead in a hour TV drama.
And then after that, it really then was kind of into EastEnders, really, wasn't it?
I finished that, had £1 in my pocket, went on audition for EastEnders, and next 3 years of my life, I was Sean Slater.
So how did EastEnders come up then?
Just an audition.
Audition.
Same as it were. My agent at the time was Barbara Windsor's agent.
Okay.
And he had a couple of other EastEnders people there at the same time, and they'd been really struggling to find an actor to play this character. And they had done hundreds of auditions and really gone through the ringer with all these people, and they found a guy, but they weren't sure. And my agent convinced them to let me come in. I went in and I was there for an hour, and they just kept on giving me, would you read this scene, read this, bring in this director, bring the director. And I was like, this is all fine. The one beautiful thing about autism is my memory is phenomenal. So I can read a page once and then it's in. So I was just like reading it. They kept on giving me the stuff and I kept on just doing it. And I walked out of there. By the time I got to the train station, they'd asked me to do the job.
Wow.
So that was it. 3 years. 3 years of Sean Slater after that.
Did you expect to be in EastEnders for that long?
Don't really. I've never had a plan. I still don't have a plan. It's one of the great faults in my life is that I don't have a plan. I just do the things that what comes, and I try not to have disappointments if they don't go my way, or plans never go to plan. So just be grateful for what you have. And I mean, I think I probably would have stayed a lot longer, but I found it very difficult dealing with being that famous at the time, because it was a level of fame. You couldn't walk down the street, Jody. You couldn't.
Oh yeah.
Couldn't go to a restaurant. The newspapers would print all this crazy lies about you, and there was nothing you could do about it. Your entire life. I was 21 years old. I was not mentally prepared for what that was going to be. And it wrecked me. I mean, it wrecked me. And I didn't get the support from the BBC back then that I needed as a 21-year-old. And I had to leave for my own well-being more than anything else. So I did my 3 years. And I loved every second of it, apart from, the things that come with it.
Yeah.
And then moved to America pretty much, 2 years later.
And then, because it was Red Tails and The Hobbit after that.
It was. After that, it was a year or so sitting here trying to get a job and nobody willing to meet me because I'd been on a soap opera. Incredibly difficult to get any jobs. Like there were casting directors that still won't see me in the UK because I was on a soap.
Really?
Despite everything since, they still won't see me. It was one of those things. I did an audition once. I auditioned for Thor. Like literally first round. It wasn't even then. I was never going to get Thor. And the casting director fed back to my agent. He's just a soap actor. He'll never do films. Yeah. That hurt. I was 24 years old. You know what I mean? That hurt. And so then I realized I got Red Tails, and I realized that if I was going to get a job, I'd have to go to America because no one in England was going to give me a shot after EastEnders. And so I went and did Red Tails, fell in love with a girl on the movie. She lived in LA, and we did long distance for a year, and I moved to America. And a mere 18 months after that, like that, got The Hobbit out of nowhere, which was one of the great sliding doors moments of my life, I think.
So what was it like? Okay, so you have, in the space of 3 years, you've gone from being on Soppy Enders all the way through to EastEnders, all the way through to going on to The Hobbit. I mean, that's quite a whirlwind, isn't it?
My life has always been like that. Yeah, it was when I remember when everyone wants you to fail when you come out of EastEnders. Everyone wants you to fail as much as possible, and you try not to let it affect you. And newspapers they write you off and say horrible things about you, and everybody's hoping you fail, which is a weird thing about the English sensibility. And I always found that difficult. I've never wished anybody failed, other than nasty, evil people that I've met in my life. But it is a thing where we like to see people fall, and people really wanted me to fail. And I did fail. I failed for 3 years straight after EastEnders, and I sat there and 2 years. I didn't work. I couldn't get a job. I was really struggling. I was out of money and stuff like that. And then I got EastEnders. I didn't get EastEnders. I got The Hobbit. And I remember sitting up there and just sitting on my balcony with my dog at the time and just got the phone call, got the, you got the job. I'd done 2 auditions for Peter. I'd flown to London to do an audition for Peter, and I'd flown back and was sitting there and didn't ever think that I could ever get The Hobbit. But then at the same time, I'm such a sci-fi and fantasy nerd. I don't think there was anyone out there that was more prepped for a job. And I knew what a dwarf should be and sound like, and I knew the world and stuff like that. And I got the phone call saying you got the job, and I just said, thank you very much, hung up, and then sat on my balcony and cried for an hour in relief. And then before I knew it, a month later, I'm in New Zealand, and I was there for 8 months.
Not a bad gig.
Long old time, isn't it? 8 months.
It was a wonderful gig with wonderful people, and it was a wonderful, wonderful time. And it was just a tragedy for me that I didn't get to finish the job. Dino Gorman stepped in and absolutely smashed it out of the park and did a better job than I ever could have or would have. But, I was meant to be there for 3 years, but real life in the way, and Peter and Fran, and they really looked after me and made sure that I was taken care of. And the crazy thing was, once I left The Hobbit, I managed to film Pacific Rim and True Blood, and they were still filming The Hobbit.
Wow.
That's how long they were out there, those guys.
Yeah.
So I suppose with Pacific Rim, it's kind of a big jump then, isn't it, to being a really prominent actor in what was quite a big profile film at the time.
It was a big one for me. That was a lifesaver for me, because when you have to walk away from a job like The Hobbit, you think your career's done. You think, that's my first big movie. It's my first lead role in a big movie. And it's not just a big movie. It's a $500 million movie starring with Peter Jackson and the entire team. And here's Sir Ian, and here's Kate Blanchett, and here's Hugo Weaving, and here's all of these amazing actors, and you're not in it anymore. You're basically out. And I thought I was toast. I thought I was absolutely done. And I was really struggling with that, because on top of that, you had the British press are going to enjoy this. They're going to enjoy me failing again. And they're right. I didn't crack Hollywood. I didn't do that. And my agent told me to take 6 months off, that she wasn't going to put me up for any jobs. And it was the right move, because I was not in a place where I should be working at that point. I was just in a really bad spot. But 4 months went by, and then this audition came in, and they were like, "This is perfect for you. You need to make a tape." Made a tape, and then I did more tapes. It was Margie Simkin who cast me in Section 31. And I worked with Margie, and she helped me get this all figured out. And then Guillermo del Toro flew to London to meet me, and we went and had coffee, and I told him the entire story of The Hobbit, and I told him the entire story of my life and all that kind of stuff. And when I left and I walked away, Callum told me this, the producer, Callum Green, he said, Guillermo turned to him and said, "We need to save that boy." And they put me in Pacific Rim, and literally did, I think, save my life at that point, because it put my life back on rails that I knew, and I had the best time of my life making an absolutely iconic movie in another battle suit. And
we're going to talk about suits, don't worry.
Yes.
And then went straight from that to True Blood, which again was a slightly missed opportunity, but what a wonderful bunch of people. It's been, I mean, I'm a lucky man. Let's just say that. I mean, when hard work and, luck collide, you have a good life. But I've had a career that most people could only dream of, and
it's one hell of a career. It's
a great one. And the nicest thing about it is that I've never been famous ever again. But I haven't. I'm that guy now in that thing that everyone goes, "I've seen you in something," and you're really familiar. I'm like the new Will Sadler or William Fichtner, Sean. I'm all about that, and that's great. And to have all of these wonderful things happening, and doing all these jobs, and working with all these lovely people, and then again last year, I was kind of like, well, I think I'm done. I think I'm done. And then the job of all jobs drops on your lap. The greatest job that I could ever want, the ultimate for me, is Star Trek. Because I'm such a huge
Swear all you want, mate. Don't worry.
Okay,
All
cool.
you want.
Oh yeah.
I'm such a huge fan of Trek. Like, it's such a big part of my life. It's such a crucial part of my life. So, like, to suddenly have that come out of nowhere just felt like someone was writing a script of my life. It's just been really spectacular. Would it have been great if this movie happened to win Oscars and was a phenomenal Citizen Kane level movie? Sure, yeah, that would have also been good. But just being part of Star Trek in like any capacity is my absolute dream come true.
Yeah. So let's go down that path then. How did Section 31 come about?
I made a really bad tape. Super average. I mean, I've watched it. I've still got it. It's not good.
I'm noticing a theme because Sven was telling us that his tape for Trek was
terrible. Yeah,
terrible. Rough.
Well, he had this
a rough
whole
time.
thing of being in South Africa, trying to plan when power was going to be around, and
the man's got 5 kids as well.
I know. It's
That
quite
came
funny.
up.
He talks about how he doesn't watch much television, and I'm like, perhaps you need to.
Yeah, perhaps do something else other than make babies. But I mean, he makes it work. And boy,
He does.
he's good.
But yeah, there was this whole story about how he had to make sure there was power and a backup generator.
Yeah, they
and
have a
to go
lot
to
of brownouts.
school, and I know.
Yeah.
His whole story about how he did his tape could be a movie.
I know. I thought it was
Yes.
brilliant.
It's nuts.
I had a much easier time. I just stood over there and did it again. My lights were fine, electrics, everything was okay. But it wasn't a good tape. But for some reason, again, I've done 35 years of research, and I knew the genre, and I knew what I was saying, and I knew, for example, on the first read through of Section 31, one of the other actors said ensign, not ensign.
Oh no!
And yeah, I'm fuming, absolutely, just like going, not my place to correct actors. Just like tears of frustration coming down my face. The Klingons.
They sound like lovely people.
Lovely people. Distantly related to Klingons.
Distant. They're on the moon.
I can't remember what I was saying, but yeah, it was. I knew the world and I knew the terminology, and I was doing everything how it should be. So, and apparently, I hit the tone right and got the job offer. And again, 2 weeks later, I'm off in Toronto.
So, did you audition for Zeph?
Yes. I wasn't. I know lots of other people audition for other things, but I was always going to be only auditioning for Zeph. There was no other role for me. There are very few actors that are giant meatheads that can definitely. They have suits,
wear a latex suit for 18 hours a day.
Yeah, they know how to do that and survive. So yeah, it was always only going to be Zeph for me, and Zeph is the gift that is still giving, and I love Zeph. So Zeph might be my favorite character I've ever played.
Wow. Those are big words.
Yeah.
He is. I mean, we love him. I loved him. So, I mean, look, I think in Trek, as you well know, we have a kind of an affection for our genetically enhanced or whatever characters, and they don't ever seem to disappoint us.
No.
Really.
Well, it's funny because the greatest characters in Trek, is what I'm about to say true? I don't know if that's true. But some of the great characters in Trek are great characters. People with dualities and double loyalties, and the Garis of the world, and the Cisco, and all of these kind of things. I mean, Trek was a bit more. TNG was a bit more archetypal, black and white characters, but still. I think the characters get really interesting when they have that duality. But Zeph is a throwback. He's just a very simple, very happy, very nice and just having a good time. And who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want to spend more time with that when everyone is so dramatic and so hard and so difficult and everybody's being all Section 31 about stuff and he's just there having a sandwich? Like, what more? That's just joy for me.
The person I feel sorry for the most is that poor woman you're talking to about Mech life, and then you punch her halfway across the room.
His name's David, but he was a lovely man. And we actually, that was a good day because that's good stuff. And he improvised like a 3-minute monologue.
Yeah,
we were all watching it, going, "This is brilliant! This is fantastic!" And I'm just like, "When do I punch him? Because this is just too funny." And then none of it made it in, unfortunately. But he was great.
Was that David Benjamin Tomlinson?
No. He was Andorian.
He was the Andorian.
6 or 7 other aliens in that because full face prosthetics.
Oh, that man. Yeah, friend of the podcast, but yeah, he's an incredible man.
Yeah,
we love David. Okay, then. So for Zeph, how did you approach this?
How did I approach it? Well, it's a difficult question because I know as much about Trek as most people, as most of the most hardcore fans I know as much Trek. And Trek is very important to me. And when I looked at this, I knew that this wasn't your typical Trek, and it wasn't trying to be your typical Trek in any way. It didn't feel familiar to Trek. It felt like a complete outlier. And I was looking at it going, okay, so what we're not trying to replicate, the feel of any other show. We're trying to create something completely original, completely different that doesn't feel like any other Trek.
Yeah.
And I had my concerns and stuff like that. I was like, okay, but it's still got to feel like Trek somehow. It's still got to do all these kind of stuff. So I was like, how can I make these moments land, find the humor in these moments, and then but also it still be essentially Trek light. But that all came from Tunde, really, and Alex, because we knew we were doing something that hadn't been done before. We were doing a new language. We were doing a whole new thing. And we had to rely on those guys to be our tastemakers and say, this is that and the other. And Craig and Sweeney to push us in the right directions to see that. And when I saw that we were shooting with 3 cameras, which is not a traditional thing at all on this, usually you would shoot with 1 or 2 tops, but 3 cameras lets you improvise. We started playing around and really kind of finding where each character lay. It all started to fall into place. The first day for us, the first day on the shoot was Joe, Ping, Michelle, and Amari doing their interrogation scene. Dada knows interrogation scene. That was day 1. Day 2 was all 7 of us in the Section 31 ship doing that big round robin scene.
Yep.
And that was the day where we all tried a lot of things and found what didn't work. Because when you hire a bunch of comedians and everybody's trying to be funny, nobody's funny.
Yep.
So finding who fit into what part where, and where we all finding all of our places of how we fit in as a crew. How each person brings their color to that palette to make a good painting. And you learn how, like, I became very good at setting up Sam, and Sam became very good at setting up Umberly. And we all started to kind of figure out what we were doing, and it all started to come together that day. And to be honest, I don't think any of us really, any plans that we had went out the window after that day. And from that day onwards, we knew exactly what we were doing.
Well, it's about dynamics, isn't it? You have to find that with your cast, and as quickly as possible, if you can.
Well,
I have to.
Go on.
No, sorry. I was just going to ask, as a fan, I mean, you're just as much a Trekkie as anyone. What was that like going first day to you're going to film Trek? Like you're doing that.
I mean, that was a treat. After the first take, because they did, it's a long day.
Yeah.
And they start on Amari and Michelle, and they shoot them out, and then they moved around, and I was like the sixth, so that's like 8 or 9 hours into the day, where the camera's on me, and we all know what we're doing at this point, and I've got all the things I'm doing down, and like it's just like that, and we shot me, and we did it, and then we did the close version and this stuff, and then we did the improvised version and stuff like that, and after the first take, I just walked up to Tunde and went, "I'm in Star Trek!"
Yes.
The circle, and everyone was like, "Ah!"
Bucket list ticked.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was such a joyous moment. But to go back to what you're saying is about a crew. What makes Star Trek great, and it's always been, is you're with your friends in space. The chemistry of Bones, Spock, and Kirk. The fact that the TNG guys were just a bunch of dudes that they weren't even good at. They were phenomenally bad actually at their jobs. They were terrible. Every single one of them was awful at their jobs. But they were just. You wanted to go into space, and it didn't care what the storyline was. You just wanted to spend an hour with your friends and their friendship. Like some of the best scenes in TNG are when they're playing poker.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the same. It's the same in Voyager, which is why Tuvix was so disturbing. It was the same. It was the same in DS9 when you're hanging out with.
Yeah.
I love the relationship between Odo and Quark.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's one of my favorite relationships.
Mm-hmm.
They even redeemed Loxana in DS9.
Yes.
In that episode with Odo, and you're just like, and you that's what makes Trek good. So when you asked me how did I approach this, I was like, I don't think we're going to get anybody to fall in love with the idea of this film with the film, but we might be able to get them to fall in love with the crew. And if they fall in love with the crew, we get to say that this is an encounter at Farpoint, and then we go off and make 10 more, and they get better and better and bigger and bigger. And maybe after a whole season of this, you'll love this crew as much as you love any other crew. And I think, genuinely, I mean, because we all are such friends and became friends genuinely so quickly and so truthfully and honestly, like these people, we bonded like I've never seen before ever. If these people stick together, I think all of that will come across on screen. I think it does for the most part in Section 31.
Yeah. Two things I need to say about that. Like, I think that is a very unique thing. I have no acting experience. I have no inside information on how all of that works. But I hear this a lot from actors and people in the crew that Trek is unique a bit in the way that the cast can bond, that they form like beyond the stage, beyond what they're doing, beyond the job of Trek. There's a family friendship that forms.
That's what Michelle said. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a unique piece. I think the other piece that you talk about is about the characters of Section 31. And what we've heard from, the actors that we've talked to, your fellow castmates, is that they all have that same vibe, that this was a pretty tight-knit group, that, we got along beyond the cameras. and that's important. And the other thing I will say, and Mike and I have talked about this before, is that Section 31 is a fun movie. I think I've watched it 10 times now.
Yeah. And
the more I watch it, the more I want to know about these characters.
It's a film that gets better with more watches. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
And it comes from, like, let's get into this. It comes from viewing it from the pedestal that it's meant to be viewed from, and not the one you want to view it from.
Yeah.
Like Mike, you said on your review episode that it was a $90 million movie. It's not. It's a $30 million movie.
Yeah.
That's basically 2 episodes of Strange New Worlds, and you get a whole movie for it. Like, they had no budget whatsoever. People ask, because it's a movie, they are comparing it to Beyond, which was a $200 million budget. in a different time as well.
Yes. Yeah.
There was a criticism, like, for example, that you guys had on Sans ship, the interior. You didn't like it, right? But that's the Discovery Bridge, and it's not. They didn't do that because
I thought we loved Sans ship.
I liked Sans ship.
I thought we loved Sans ships.
Someone said something.
It was the one we didn't like was Giorgio's office because it was just a redress of Discovery's Bridge.
Was Giorgio's out?
I think, or was it? It was one of them. It wasn't Sans ship. We loved because we compared it to a almost mirror universe La Serena.
Yeah.
Which was awesome.
Yeah, but my point is, anyway, not to be incorrect as I have been, and I apologize, but my point is that all of those sets had to be reused. It was the only way to make this hit budget.
Yeah,
sure.
And it had to be 95 minutes long. It couldn't be a second over. Because if it was a second over, it becomes a different kind of movie, and they'd have had to pay a different bracket. So to keep this thing at $30 million, nobody was getting paid. Nobody was, they weren't building new sets. Paul Kirby had to do amazing things, recycling old sets. Yeah. Like it was an absolute love, a labor of love. And when you view Section 31 through that lens of the fact that we have hours of footage that's on the cutting room floor because it couldn't make it in to make a coherent story, like you had to sit in that 95-minute bracket, and that they had no budget to make an entire movie and still made a movie, I think it's an absolute, well, I'm not going to say masterpiece, because I think that a lot of the criticism is merited. If you don't like Section 31, you're right. If you like Section 31, you're right. What I have noticed is what I knew would happen. I don't think that this is going to be a Star Trek 4. I don't think this is going to be an Inner Light. I don't think it's going to be one of the all-time greats. Maybe not. Maybe it won't be. But people are already beginning to change their tone on it. There's a lot of people that like it, that are coming forward, and they're not being afraid to be shouted down about it now. And I think it will find its place in Trek. And I think it will do that. I hope it does that before we lose the opportunity to make a show out of it. Because with all the negativity, would you greenlight a show?
No.
But if you were to view it as just a pilot to a great...
Yeah, it's a very different... I think part of the problem with it is that Paramount were extremely quiet about any detail of it from day one all the way up until the week before.
Literally.
And there was so much speculation about and there were so many rumors flying around that, we're going to see this, we're going to see the Enterprise C, we're going to get this, we're going to get that. And I think that has hurt the film so much, because if you take away every rumor and what was spun by this person to that person and everything else, and actually just look at it through the vision of what it actually is, it's a great movie.
I mean,
and I think Paramount could have done more to maybe give a few more details throughout, not give everything away.
But at the same time, Paramount was broke and being bought out by various different companies and laying off 1,500 people a month every month.
Yeah.
So, which is why, by the way, we had no budget.
Right.
And it was like all the odds are against Section 31.
Yeah.
And Paramount for that matter. Yeah. Like this is, I get it. It's funny because when you were talking about those rumors, I hadn't heard any of those rumors.
Well, I got a message. So I got the screener just before Christmas, so I'd watched it before Christmas, and then we were at the premiere. Mate, that made my Christmas. I was so excited when I got that email. I go, yes, I've got the screener, and I must have watched it 3 times before I'd even gone to London. And watched it in London. Literally the day of that premiere, I had 2 messages from 2 different people, both saying the same thing, saying, apparently we're going to see the Enterprise C bridge. And I'm going, what the hell are you on about? I've seen this. You ain't, no way in heaven or earth is that storyline fitting into this storyline.
I would have been really disappointed if we had, by the way. I mean, I know lovely teas and stuff like that, but
it wouldn't fit.
Well, it wouldn't fit. But here's the thing. Timelines being a little bit muddled up and slightly wrong, notwithstanding.
Yes.
Which I haven't fact checked, but I assume you're right. I'm just going to assume that.
It's kind of lost era, isn't it? It's that.
It's lost era. But you were talking about how like Picard would be, how old Khan would be.
We said Picard would probably be in his 20s or 30s.
Yeah.
So
Rachel Garrett was the tease. And for me, the show, Section 31, if we do a show, should be about Rachel Garrett and how Rachel Garrett goes from Section 31 to the center seat.
Yeah.
That's, if you had the Enterprise C in this one, then we're already, what are we doing? No, this is introducing Casey Roll and Rachel Garrett as the new Michael Burnham to Michelle Georgiou. Michelle Georgiou.
That was awesome.
Philippa Georgiou.
That was fantastic.
That's her sister.
I loved it.
To Michelle. And then carrying it on.
Yeah. I think too, though, that unfortunately, I think Section 31 has bore the brunt of just some frustration across the fandom, and warranted or not, that's the reality. Yeah. And I think I agree, and I'm the same proponent. Like on the first read, I enjoyed the show. I had some issues with it, but I enjoyed it. As I've continued to watch it, it will easily become one of those staples that people go back to watch.
Yeah.
And beyond the Giorgio story.
Yeah.
Because there's good stuff there. There are great characters, there are great relationships, and there is more story to be told there.
Yeah, we need to know how Zeph gets his suit.
We do actually need to know how Zeph gets his suit and how he comes back from his tragic death.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no one's ever dead in sci-fi, let's face it.
Ever.
Star Trek. But also I want to address the very fine criticism of take the name Section 31 off the movie. It's not about Section 31, which totally get. Doesn't take place in Federation space, right?
Right.
That's the thing that people are always missing. So the rules of the Federation do not apply out here.
Yep.
The other thing I've been saying is that, yes, I know that people were expecting a espionage movie, something very, very William Sadler. You know, they were expecting that, Sloan.
Yep.
Now, does Alok Sahar fit into that bracket of Sloan?
Yes.
100%. And I think Georgiou fits into the bracket of Sloan. These two. Well, those are the only two actual members of Section 31. The rest of us are not. And so when people say that these guys wouldn't be Section 31, well, we're not, actually. None of us are actual members of Section 31. Only Alok is. And then he is tasked with putting together a team out on the outskirts to go and do the whole thing. And when you think about Section 31 and what they're capable of, like you took the brilliant episode with Bashir and Sloan where he's in his brain and he's just constantly coming up with false memories. And you're just like, this is an absolute mind bender of how this kind of works. Then Alok very much fits in the Section 31 mold. And if we do more of these, we'll go more into the underbelly of what Section 31 would actually be. But again, it's one of those things of people having an expectation of what the film's going to be and then just being disappointed that it's not trying to be that. It's actually just trying to be an hour and a half of fun.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah. And then I'm trying to think of the other things I wanted to talk about. I've had like 2 weeks to just kind of go into brew and go, okay, well, this is what we're going to do.
And now you come to do it. It's like,
completely blank.
Yeah.
Like completely blank. But there, because you had some like, there was a timeline question that you had about Alok and the eugenics wars. Like,
Yes.
what was it? In the movie, I don't know if we just didn't hit it hard enough. He says that he was taken in by another augment, ripped apart and then created, and wasn't part of the Botany Bay. But I did like your idea, by the way, of maybe there's another Botany Bay out there. Like that was actually interesting, and I did send that off to a few people and be like, you should.
Oh, does that mean we're going to get credit? No, I'm joking.
Well, was it? I can't remember. I've seen so many reviews tearing us apart, but there was one talking about forgetting the names of the species, the blackface and the whiteface, and how they had been eradicated.
Yes.
Right.
Like, and it was a really, really great question. And I think there's actually two things. One you answered yourself is, well, there would always be outliers. The planet's destroyed, but there's always going to be one somewhere. It's an intergalactic species. But then the other thing was that this is a love movie, a love letter to Star Trek by people who make Star Trek. And that's one of the great episodes and one of the great species that never gets enough love, and wanted to have it in there. So all of these things just constantly feed back into, rather than viewing it from the platform you want to view it from the platform it's on. That's all.
Yeah,
exactly. And I fully get that. So obviously, kind of keeping it on that topic, what do you hope audiences would enjoy most about the film?
Us. I mean, it's us. Look, the Star Trek is an incredibly intimidating premise for people to get into. There are thousands. I don't know if we've bridged 1,000, but we must be close.
Close. Last time, I think it was 980 something. Last time.
Yeah, so as good as 1,000 episodes and a dozen movies of varying quality and various things. Like you ain't getting kids today to watch TOS. You're not. You're not going to get them to sit through the first 2 seasons of TNG to get to the third and then where it gets good from there. You're not going to get kids to really watch Voyager or DS. It's going to be hard. And so the kids today, their first inkling of what Star Trek is going to be disco. But that misses so many elements of what makes Star Trek great, of it being singular and episodic and things like that. It's again, disco is a different flavor of Trek. It's a continuing storyline rather than an hour in space with your mates with a moral parable, which is why they gave us Strange New Worlds, which does fit that bracket.
Yeah.
So how do you get people to love Trek? And that's what we're all trying to do. We're trying to get people to love Trek, because I genuinely, firmly, hand on my heart, believe that if everybody in the world loved Trek like we love Trek, we'd have the Federation now.
Wouldn't it be a lovely place to be?
It would. I mean, as long as you're not on the internet, yeah. But it would be a lovely, lovely place to be, because I genuinely, hand on my heart, believe that you can't be a bad person and love Star Trek. How can you like that and not take away any of the teachings of it?
Well, I'll tell you what, just on that note, so I went to Star Trek Las Vegas last year.
Yeah.
I had an incredible time. And there was a bloke and he had a hat on that said Ultra MAGA on the hat. And I was talking to Aaron Waltke, the producer of Prodigy. And we were talking about this. I said, I can't believe there's a bloke walking around in a MAGA hat and a MAGA vest. And he goes, every time I've spoken to these kinds of people, they bend Star Trek into their own little bubble. So obviously we look at Star Trek of, we fixed everything here, we've gone out, we're trying to make, benefit humankind. They spin it almost from the Terran perspective. We're going out there and eradicating all the bad guys and we're protecting Earth. And that's how and he goes, it's really fascinating because they bend what are essentially the good principles of Star Trek to kind of fit in their own little bubble.
It becomes a good versus bad to them.
But that's the problem that we fall into.
Exactly.
And that's what we have to not do. I did a convention last week and I was asked on stage about why I left America, and I got into the politics of it. All right, because I'm left. And there was I didn't notice, but there was a lady there wearing a MAGA outfit. And people were outraged. And I get it, especially right now. But to me, I'm just like, they probably share the same moral outlook as the rest of the world. Maybe they're just trapped by religion. and they feel they have to. Maybe they're just trapped by, like, I use the example of, like, I remember when Trump was putting kids in cages at the border, and how I was desperate to drive down there and get a bunch of people together and go and rescue these children who were being ripped away from their families and things like that. And whilst I personally don't feel that way about pro-choice, I am absolutely pro-choice. I think it's ridiculous supposition. I can also empathize with people who might believe that children are dying. And if I can understand that perspective, and I'm not saying it's all of them, I know there are certain segments of that movement that just want to control women's bodies and control society and stuff like that. But if you can't learn from Star Trek and approach things that you disagree vehemently with empathy and understanding, you will never, ever, ever change those people. And you will just grow further apart and grow more black and white. And it is imperative that we learn those lessons and that we do approach even the worst of us with empathy. Otherwise, we are just like them and we will never get anywhere. You cannot change people's opinion by force. You can only change their opinion by example. Mm-hmm. And that's what we have to be, which is not this, it's your flag or that flag. It's not, that's not how the world works. You have right and left, okay? And the 90% of people are in the middle.
Yep.
Yes.
But if anything even is slightly right or slightly left, it's attached to whoever's on the furthest corners.
Yes.
Now that's where our conversation has gone to die, because the vast majority of people in the middle, that 90%, agree on almost everything. They might disagree on things like taxes, but the vast majority of people share a common morality. But the incredibly noisy outer edges, that 10%, have changed our discourse so much so that we are looking at that 45% of each other and seeing an enemy instead of seeing somebody that we can join together and make a difference. And that is why we lose. That's why we lose the votes, because we're not appealing to each other. We're appealing to the 5%. So, like Star Trek, if everybody loves Star Trek, if we could get more Star Trek out into the world, we would realize that we have more in common. We would probably be able to start having conversations. And, I mean, Sven said it, he quoted me on the other podcast. I became an actor because I believe you can change the world quicker with a movie than you can as a politician. And I fundamentally, a hand on my heart, 100% believe that. Like Hotel Rwanda changed the world. Schindler's List changed the world. Yeah. Philadelphia changed the world. There are Rent changed the world. There are so many pieces of how many movies have you seen that you've started and at the end of the movie, when that credits roll, you've changed.
Yep.
As a human being, you suddenly see the world differently. That's what Star Trek can do and has done for so many, many, many years. And if we made Section 31, to go back to my original point 6 years ago, to give people an access point to a greater story. Like, if you've never seen any Star Trek and you don't know anything about Star Trek whatsoever, you can watch Section 31 and you'll understand what's going on because it's not complicated.
Yeah.
And it gives you, and then you can go, well, what's Discovery? What's Strange New Worlds? What's TNG? What's DS9? What are all these acronyms?
Yeah.
And if we can continue to do that, and we can continue to make things to bring in a new audience, to bring in new people, to spread the word of Trek, we won't be in the position that we are in at the minute politically. We'll be in a better place, and it won't take forever.
I have two things I need to respond to with that. First is, because I completely agree with absolutely everything you just said. So let's start there. One of the things I want to say is that this was on one of the Star Trek cruises several years ago, but Nana Visitor is quoted as saying, "It might not be your Trek, but it's somebody's Trek."
Yep.
That's my line. I say Trek isn't for you, it's for everyone.
Exactly. Yes, and it's that sentiment that we need to kind of remember as a fandom, and as Trek moves forward as a franchise, is that they're gonna keep making Trek, and I hope they keep making a lot of Trek. They're gonna keep making Trek.
They
Rob,
might.
they're gonna. They have to.
We want them to, don't we?
No, it's more than want. We need it. We
Yeah.
need it as a society.
I agree.
And as a planet, we need shows like Trek because there's not anything else out there to the degree that Trek gives us that shows us a better side or a hopeful side of humanity. And if we don't have that, then we're lost officially. And that's saying a lot right now as an American in the current state, in a very conservative state, as a member of the LGBTQ community in a conservative state who doesn't want to be here, but is. And we have to have hope. And the hope is, if it's going to come from the stars, it's going to come to us through Trek. And if I'm going to protest something, I will protest that they make more Trek. Let's just be honest.
This is why this is more than just me defending a movie or something I'm in. Like,
sure.
I've been in a lot of bad things. I've been bad in good things. I've been good in bad things, but I've just been in a lot of very mid things as well. And I haven't defended any of them. But and I've said this before, like, young people don't know what Trek is. No. And we're an aging fan group and we're dying out. And without fresh eyes on Trek, it won't be around for long. Paramount's already in dire straits and going to be bought out, apparently. I mean, who knows? It's a constant mystery what's happening there.
Yeah.
But, let's look at the movies. Let's go with Into Darkness, $185 million budget, gross 470. Star Trek Beyond, $195 million budget, gross 360. Lost money, and that's a huge loss. Both of those, by the way, are considered huge losses because press and advertising and all that stuff and distributor fees, all of those things go aside. Paramount made no money, lost money on both of those films. And then you've got winnowing figures for Trek, not because of the quality of Trek. I mean, you look at how much people loved Lower Decks. Still wasn't enough to save it, and that's not expensive. Like, me defending all of Trek and just encouraging people to be the Federation, encourage the things you like. If you don't like something, that's fine. You don't have to convince other people not to like it. Star Trek isn't for you. It is for everybody. Don't gatekeep Trek from people. Encourage Trek into people's homes. Yep. Like, if we don't do that, and if the people don't get off Kurtzman's back and recognize that man is the only thing keeping Trek alive right now, we will lose Trek. And I don't want to live in that world. I don't want another period of time between TOS and TNG. I don't want it.
I'm just going to put this out there.
Or Enterprise and Discovery.
Yeah.
Right. I think Kurtzman's a genius.
Yeah.
From my perspective as a fan, because when Discovery hit the thing, we had been in a long dry spell when it came to Trek.
Yep.
But Discovery's great.
Yeah.
And because of Discovery and Kurtzman's vision with his team, look at everything that has followed. It's brought back some nostalgia to us in the characters of TNG and Voyager and Deep Space Nine. We've had a new animated series that just, if you're a Trekkie fan at any level, should knock your socks off because it's brilliant. Strange New Worlds. I mean, we get a throwback to tie into the original series in this era. It's crazy what we have been able to been given. And I think what has happened, and I think Mike will affirm this, because kids were watching Picard or were watching Lower Decks, and they're like, well, who's 7 of 9? Or who's Data? Yep. They're suddenly now going back and watching those shows.
Yeah.
And they're going to the conventions. And we need to keep up that momentum.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I went to Vegas, it was insane. The amount of children who dragged their parents to a Star Trek convention. and how many children I saw dressed up as Janeway, who were dressed up as Zero, who were dressed up as Mirth, and it's just and
Prodigy, come on.
That's what the fandom needs.
We can't keep wheeling Patrick Stewart out.
He doesn't do conventions anymore.
But no, I'm just relying on him though to lead the Trek universe. We can't but 93.
Yeah,
but Janeway, we got Kate Mulgrew, who is just knocking things down on Prodigy, and it's such a great storyline. And I know it looks like a kid show, but let me tell you,
it ain't.
It's for a Trek fan.
I tell you what,
absolutely is. It like Lower Decks is fan service. And Prodigy, it's both fan service show, and we love them. Season 3 of Picard was fan service.
Service. Ate it up. But it's capturing a new audience, and we have to continue to feed that.
Yeah, absolutely. So encourage the man, understand that he's working to make Trek in the most difficult circumstances, where he's given no money and given no time and given no freedom to do so, and still churning out people hated TNG when it came out. People hated DS9, they hated Voyager.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm still iffy on Enterprise, but it's getting every time.
I'm with you on the Enterprise front.
No, here's the thing about Enterprise. I swear I really genuinely I really think that if it didn't have that theme tune, would be,
thank you
wholeheartedly. Yep,
it takes you out immediately as you're like, well, this isn't Trek.
You're expecting dun dun dun, and then it's like,
yes,
it's been along. Oh God.
I'm not going to be watching this at some live orchestra one day. I want to. Where's the music? Like, I don't want
Trek themes.
Don't want it.
Trek themes have to have timpani. If they don't have a timpani, we're not listening.
And they made the mistake once and they moved on. Fine. They never did it again. No. Well done. Cool.
They now have an incredible composer that has. There's two incredible composers. Nami's incredible. Jeff Russo is phenomenal.
Russo's great.
I'm waiting for the score to drop for Section 31 because that score is fantastic.
But my point is that Disco wasn't my kind of Trek. I never had the attention to give to a continuing storyline, so I was always like, what was I? Kind of thing. I was always getting confused. Strange New Worlds is my kind of Trek. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that in 5 years, people will look back at Strange New Worlds and Disco the same way that my generation, our generation, looks back at TNG and DS9. Like, it will be there. It's just, why do you have to hate something first?
I know. It's really, really frustrating. I mean, I remember when Disco, I love Disco. And I remember when it first came out and it was slated by all of the, and I'm going to call them the old school Trekkies, and they are the people that grew up and religiously watched TOS, hated TNG, still hate TNG, and hate everything else other than TOS. And there are those people out there that hate everything other than TOS.
How can you hate TNG?
I don't know.
There's a couple of episodes that you should hate.
Yes, but you could say that about every show. There's always going to be a couple of episodes.
I have such controversial opinions about some TNG episodes. I really do. Also,
Fairhaven, for example, in Voyager.
Fairhaven also.
It's a great episode.
I don't know. We might have to cut this entire next section, and I'm serious. Might have to. But Data's a rapist. Okay, lost you. Follow me here.
No. I know where you're coming from.
Party ship episode. Tasha Yar is inebriated.
Yep.
Okay.
Later, and he has sex with her, and then he walks out and it's played off like a joke. Different time. Obviously, different time. Well done, Data. You got your end away, is what they were kind of doing back then. But by today's standard, that's not legal.
Well, we can say that about a lot of TV from the 80s.
Yes, that's true.
And 90s.
For sure. There's the entire Trill species of pure evil. Pure evil. An entire planet's populace harvested, basically, put through a Hunger Games level kind of competition to compete, to have their will and self taken away by the powerful elite.
Yeah.
I mean,
But it's a culture.
Yeah.
it's bad culture. By our standards, by our moral relativism, these things are very, very bad.
Yeah.
Then there's the sex candle. You know exactly what I'm saying about sex candle. I mean, that's the of Trek.
That is the best, campiest episode we have ever had of Star Trek, hands down.
It felt like any minute Kate Bush was going to come in singing it. Like it was. They're a bat. Fairhaven is a prime example. Like the prime directive just doesn't matter when you don't want it to. Kind of like there are so many. There are bad moments, but if you can hate TNG, what do you hate? Joy?
I know.
Right.
He's mad.
Right.
He's mad.
What's wrong with you? I understand. Like DS9. I love everything about DS9 apart from the religious aspect of it.
Yeah.
Like,
I can
agree. The whole idea of the Federation is that we'd evolved past the point of religion, which is why there's not a single mention of any earthly religions at any time in it. The whole vision that Roddenberry had was that we're out of that. We've evolved past that. So to have the story of Moses be the crux of your entire show, then to have wormhole aliens and gods and all of these kind of things be hinted at, and then Kai Wynn.
Oh, Space Karen.
Oh,
Space Karen.
I said this on
She's a Space Karen.
Like she is.
Brilliant performance. I mean,
oh yeah,
nailed it. Like smacked. Did it just one flow of Cuckoo's Nest. Amazing actress, amazing performance. But every time, my child, she's on screen, I wanted to.
You just want to punch something.
Spoon and just rip my eyes out. I couldn't do it. Couldn't watch it. Hated it. Hated that. But the rest of it was great. And like I said, Section 31 characters galore. Bashir would have been great in Section 31. The Obsidian Order and Garis.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Talk about
imagine them as part of Section 31.
Yeah. I mean, we should bring back Garak, and we should bring back we can't bring back Discovery guy went off to the head Section 31. We can't, different timeline.
Oh yeah.
What's his name?
I can't.
Come on, what's his name?
I almost had it.
Hang on.
Great actor.
It. I don't have it.
Shazad Latif is the actor.
There you go. Yeah,
yes,
brilliant.
Thank you.
Brilliant actor.
Yes.
But there are like the Obsidian Order.
No, he's not. Well, he is Vok, but it's not Vok. This is gonna bug the crap out of me now.
Get up.
Hang on. IMDb. Where are we? Discovery. Ash Tyler. There we go.
Ash Tyler.
Thank you.
Different era, but
wow.
Again, that's a disappointment because people were expecting an Ash Tyler and Michelle Yeoh movie, but that the rumors kind of misled people to what this film was going to be, and then
yes,
whatever it was going to be wasn't going to be what they wanted. But like I've been defending the idea of Section 31 forever because I think it's a brilliant conceit. Like they get people away from the idea that Section 31 are always the bad guys, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you've got the Obsidian Order and you've got Romulus and you've got the Tal Shiar and you've got the Founders and you've got like really bad people out there which are brilliant spies, brilliant agents. Like,
well, I wouldn't say the Tal Shiar are brilliant spies because everybody knows about them.
Well, they know about what they want you to know.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, that's true.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's, playing the chess games with them and stuff. I always thought that Tomahawk was such a great villain in TNG, even if a bit weak. But the idea that do you remember that episode where it wasn't even him, but Riker, Worf, and Geordi go down to a planet and they get beamed up, and then Riker is stuck there, and he's older suddenly, and he's the captain of the Enterprise, and they're trying to get the location of the base, and then he breaks down, and they realize that he thinks it's he's got a son,
Yes.
Yes.
Jean-Luc, and then realizes that Minuet is not real, so he knows the whole thing isn't real, and then
Yep.
it's out, and then Tomahawk is there again, and he's trying to escape, and then it turns out that the whole thing is made up by this little weird alien with the worst costume I've ever seen in my entire life. Like that episode really makes you go, even though they weren't real, the Romulans are
My
playing.
cat is screaming at the door.
No,
Oh.
No, that's right. Neelix can wait. Yes, my cat
Nice.
is called Neelix.
Neelix.
Yeah.
The choice.
Well, orange
choice.
cat, and of course, Reg has an orange cat called Neelix, so I had to kind of continue the tradition.
Neelix is a character that took a while.
But he's awesome.
He's great,
Love
but
Neelix.
and the actor again, I forget his name. Brilliant,
Ethan Phillips.
Phillips.
brilliant actor. But Neelix, I hated, and then he really begins to grow on you after a little while.
Mm-hmm.
Same with most of Voyager, to be honest. I really struggled with Voyager.
Really?
I really did, and I watched it like 2 or 3 times through, and I was still
Future
like,
Imperfect. Future Imperfect. That's that episode of TNG.
remind me.
With
That's the one we were
Riker.
Oh,
just talking about with Riker.
Future Imperfect. There you go.
Which is ironic because the com badge for it is right there.
Love the selection. I don't. Oh yeah, I see a section 31 there.
Yep, it's there.
Yeah.
Yep, it's in the black. It's why you can't really see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it belongs. But yeah, I watched Voyager through like 3 or 4 times and still didn't like it, and then watched it again when I got a bit older,
Yeah.
and then suddenly it hits.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I see what people did here, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm beginning to different kinds of relationships. The idea of being stuck, the idea of a 5-year mission is great. I love a 5-year mission exploring the boundaries of the frontier, but a lifetime mission stuck on a ship that doesn't have the basic things it needs to replicate food and things that suddenly it's shipwrecked.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big Gilligan's Island.
Gilligan's Island in space. It's brilliant. Utterly brilliant. And I got into this argument about Janeway Chakotay romance, right?
I suppose it's better than a Janeway Paris romance with strange lizard babies.
Or Chakotay and 7. Here's where I draw the line. Chakotay and 7, no.
Do you know, if you
Chakotay 7 and any of them. No. No, that just didn't make sense. There was that's my problem with Janeway and Chakotay, is that it was just laziness by the writers that everyone has to have a romance, but at the same time, because I was always like, Janeway's got a fiance waiting for her, and Janeway is not going to change that. No. Until Janeway is not that character. She's not going to suddenly be like, oh, but I'll also have an affair with Chakotay, and I was it always just felt wedged in there for mostly for him, because what started off as such a great promise of Maquis Federation battle for power, which is obviously what they were aiming for with Voyager. It was 2 captains, 1 ship. Mm-hmm. I mean, just saying that is a good tagline. But they obviously just kind of moved away from that once they started going.
You kind of halfway through season 1, it just kind of sprinkled in bits, and then it just sort of fades away.
But they didn't really give Chakotay anything to do other than some mildly racist kind of stereotypical Native American stuff, which felt like.
Yeah, so there was that whole issue, wasn't there, with their Native American advisor being a fraud?
Yes, could you tell? And it's one of those things where they were like, "Oh, we don't know what to give him, so let's give him that."
Yeah.
And then when that didn't work, they were like, "Let's give him Jerry Ryan." And again, that it's just like, I feel really bad for him. Because every other character in there had so much to do.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Especially the Doctor.
God blimey.
Bob Picardo doesn't light bulb to where he is from.
I met him in New York, and it was such a joy.
I mean, He is just
You literally just like a little child, and it's like I'm being Bob Picardo.
Since the day I signed on to this, I've been like a little child. Like even just running around the sets. I went to the Star Trek repository out in California. I saw some crazy stuff, crazy stuff there. Just like Data's head and the Borg's head and all the costumes.
But do you have Enterprise carpet?
But there was. I'll see if I can find it.
Literally, like my most prized possession now is my Enterprise carpet.
That I absolutely understand why. You're going to have to cut out me searching.
Several days later.
I'm gonna show all these to the screen, okay? So first off, I went with Peter List.
oh,
season one,
nice.
who is my best friend, and that's her costume.
Yeah.
She was
Yeah.
that. Which was fantastic. They've got all this crazy, weird stuff. Like, did you know this existed? Star Trek versus X-Men.
What?
No.
No. I know there was a whole Star Trek Transformers at one point, but not X-Men.
They go to the planet X and have a mission with the X-Men.
Stop it.
Hang on, how does that work though? Because poor
I
Patrick
didn't read
Stewart can't be Professor Xavier and Picard.
I know. Well, that's a very good point.
That is awesome. Now I want to read that.
Yeah. How badly? But they had like all the old toys.
Oh yeah.
They have
Literally just like one of everything ever
they have
made.
one of everything, including
The fish tank.
Nice.
fish tank. I offered them 10 grand for it, and they laughed in my face and said, but they do have B4,
Wow.
which I thought was super cool.
Oh, that's
It is.
Weighty as well. I did pick it up.
So is that the original B4 or is that the redo they did for Picard?
I think it's probably the redo because I think this is original level data.
Oh yeah, it is.
And I think the build quality is slightly different. And then we obviously had the Borg Queen.
Oh yeah.
And all of this, I mean, just super cool things. And it was such a joy for me. Like,
Yes.
from day one on this job, I was having the time of my life.
See, I am gutted that I can't get to LA for the fan event.
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
I can't afford it. I can't afford it right now.
A fundraiser.
No.
A
no.
fundraiser.
No.
If
I can't do that.
everybody who watches this sends you £1,000,
Because
Now
honestly,
I want in on that fundraiser.
I mean-
Come on.
who was I talking? I asked Dave and Liz if they had any part of it, and they didn't, which is a bit. As in Dave Blass, production designer of Picard, and Liz Kozlowski, the art director, for the Enterprise Bridge, anyway. And they've not had any part of it, but they're excited to see it all put back together again and working. And I would love to get on that bridge.
Was it Enterprise D? I don't know anything about this.
It's they've built the new set for season 3 of Picard. They've kept this set.
I was curious because I never asked the question, but was that the old set just tarted up?
No, so
No,
the old set
recreated.
got thrown away.
Why would
The old set got thrown away back in the 90s.
I thought it was being reused at like Vegas and stuff like that.
That was a bad copy. I know when I spoke to when I interviewed Liz and I met her in Vegas and that we spoke about it. She went to the set tour that they have, but that's a complete rebuild from the original plans. And the original plan was to essentially use that almost fan-made set, but it just wasn't to a standard that was needed for a 4K camera.
No, I didn't think
so they had to rebuild it from scratch. So they dug out all the old plans, and she spent 2 years pretty much trying to find the carpet, or a carpet that was so close.
all she had to do was ask the fans, put a call out.
Well, the company that made the original carpet doesn't exist anymore, so you got to try and find carpet that's almost the same or identical or similar, but you can get away with it. And the plaque,
you know when you were talking about the tricorders that we were using being wrong, and all they had to do was ask fans. They can't do that, by the way, because it's illegal.
I know.
But I bet if you put a big enough call out, you get enough segments of that carpet to come back in. I bet you could find 1,000 of them. Well, maybe. I mean,
well, that's where the keep off the carpet. There were big ones of these because they were worried about wearing the carpet out. So all over the set, there were these when the set wasn't in use. But yeah, it was essentially a brand new set from the ground up. The dedication plaque is the original. Mike Okuda had the original plaque. They were going to use the Franklin Mint one they did back in the 90s. But again, it looks great. But when you see them side by side, they are so different.
Yeah, I bet the new one is about twice as wide as well for a start.
No, it was smaller. It was actually about half an inch smaller, I think, if I remember correctly.
Oh, wow.
But then Mike was like, oh yeah, just take this one. And Dave Blass literally guarded it with his life. And then one day it went missing because Liz borrowed it.
She unborrow it?
But they've kept this set because this set is as identical as it's ever going to get. They've kept it. And they've kept every piece of LCARS from it, and it will all go back, and it's going to be put back together for this fan event. And I hope that they do something with it internationally. Another one, because for some reason they think all the Star Trek fans live in America.
It would also be cheaper just to rebuild another one here. Like it cost you such a fortune to ship that stuff. Just
wise. It'd be cool though. I mean, do you remember the Star Trek experience in Hyde Park?
It reminds me of my first and greatest Trek moment in my life, which happened in 2009.
Okay.
So my girlfriend was working on a TV show called NCIS LA.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And Frakes was directing an episode. And she was like, come to set, meet Frakes. Like, and I was like, oh, okay, I get to meet Jonathan. She was
exactly very in Vegas.
Like, I was very excited. And I went down there, and she comes over and she introduces me to him, and he's very, effulgent as he is, very excitable, and we shake hands, and we start talking Trek. And after about 5 minutes of me quoting at him, he realizes that I don't like Trek. I love Trek. Like you really know Trek, don't you? And I'm like, yeah, I really do. And he goes, come here. And we're at the Paramount lot, right? So that's where NCIS LA was shooting at, the Paramount lot in LA. So he goes,
stage.
He says, we didn't go to the stage. We were already on the stage. That NCIS LA was being shot on the Star Trek stage. He goes, come here. And he puts a chair down. He looks up. He does this a couple of times. He moves the chair, goes right there. He says, sit down. And he puts his hands on my shoulders as I'm sitting down. And he goes, this is where the captain's chair was. And I was just...
Goosebumps.
Oh, my word.
This is the greatest moment of my life. Riker's hands on my shoulder. Telling,
come on.
Captain's chair in the stage, in the lot, on the studio in LA of Star Trek. Are you kidding me?
How did you even get up? Why did you leave?
I just cried gently. Well, someone eventually moved me. But it was a magical moment. And then, and then I was so looking forward to seeing Frakes again on this, and like telling him that story about how gracious and how kind he was and all of these things, and telling him that story just like I just did. And I told Tunde ahead of time, and I told Kurtzman, I told Craig, and I told a few people this story, and they had all told Frakes by the time he came to set. So when he came to set and I got to meet him and I went, we've met before. He went, Paramount lot, I know.
Oh no.
Well,
moment.
Sven told us his Frakes moment. Sven told us his Frakes moment.
Yeah, the elevator.
In the lift.
Yeah.
Doesn't that drive you mental that he didn't know who Frakes was?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Overriding
100%.
thing. That when he's telling that story, you're like, how do you not know who Riker is, Sven?
But he was not a fan. He was not, he didn't have that. So I get it, but the irony that it was Frakes. Of course, it was Frakes of all people
Who
that he
else would-
meets.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, I was the only super fan on the set, I'm afraid, of the actors anyway. All the crew and cast were, but I think by the time I was done, I think everybody's pretty knowledgeable at this point because I didn't shut up.
Yeah, but that's not a bad thing.
No, and it's helpful having someone say, "How do I say ensign?" It's all of those things to have someone there to sit there and say, "No, a disruptor's different than a phaser," and to sit there and be able to break that kind of stuff down I felt very needed, and as a codependent person, feeling needed. That's what I'm about.
Winning. Look, I know we're talking about Kurtzman earlier, but I really feel like I need you to message him and tell him that at least here at Clonestar, this little crew of people, we think very highly of that man.
I think most people do. It's just most people think highly of most things. It's just the vocal minority, as I've already said, the 5%ers lead the discourse. And I've said this all along about this, is that we as a fandom have to be better than all the other fandoms, because that's kind of the point. Mm-hmm. It's not moral superiority, it's moral clarity.
Yeah.
We don't engage, and we shouldn't engage in the things that are typical in other fandoms. And it became very obvious when I said this on my first post-release interview. I was like, criticism is fine, cruelty is not.
Yeah.
And the amount of people that responded saying, well, that's not me being cruel, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, look, if that phrase triggered you,
you're being cruel.
You've got some behaviors that you're not proud of that made you think that I was talking about you. Because criticism, no matter what criticism may be, is always valid.
Yeah.
Whether it's true, whether it's accurate, doesn't matter. Criticism is valid because an opinion doesn't have to be listened to, but it should always be heard. That doesn't make sense. But
no, you don't have to act on it.
Yes,
correct.
Exactly that. But if someone doesn't like something, they're right. If they do like something, they're right. That is it. Being internet about it is never good. The way that people go after Kurtzman, no matter what he does, the way people went after Ben for his accent, never good. The way people went after this film without even having seen it, were review bombing it. Like, do you want more Trek?
Yeah,
I know you want your Trek, you want your perfect Trek. I know, but do you want any? Like, what could we make that would be not torn apart? And so you want to take the criticisms and you want to build them in and you want to make better. But I am making it my life's mission to not tolerate the cruelty parts. I'm making it my mission to try and make sure that our community stays true to what Trek is about. Because if you go to conventions, you go to anywhere where there are large gatherings of Trek people, they're the most supportive, kind, caring, considerate, wonderful, wonderful communities. And we should be battling against the darker sides of that behavior the same way we would anything else in Star Trek.
Do you think that, because you talked about being able to accept opinions not as fact, that they are a personal approach to something, and we don't always have to accept that opinion? Like, that's not a hard line. Do you think that creatives, because I spent a lot of my life as a musician, and you as an actor, they're very performative, where opinions and criticisms are a big part of what we do, that we have a different take on that than maybe people who aren't in the creative arts in any way?
Criticisms are they're like meals, right? A well-made meal is easy to palate. And take the same ingredients and don't cook it and you can't eat it. Yeah. Criticism that is given on the right plate is always welcome. You might, if I write a song, which I don't play any instruments, but just using the musician thing, if I play a song, you don't like it, it's up to me whether I go, I should never write a song again, or just look for the people that say, I loved it. It's up to you whether you want to act on that criticism or not. It's very hard. It's very easy to take a criticism that is constructive and act on it. It's very hard to not hear a criticism that isn't true that is delivered with venom.
Yes.
I can hear 100. This is why it's so hard, because
yeah, I know.
there are so many people love Section 31 and they're out there, but the loud people that hate it are the ones that stay here. And I still remember criticisms about me from when I was 21 on EastEnders and things that were written about me on the internet and things like that. It becomes incredibly hard. Criticism is part and parcel. You have a choice of whether you want to deliver what the majority think they want or what they don't know they want when you're being creative. And the vast majority of people think they want a certain thing, and they do want that, which is why they got like season 3 of Picard. But until you start giving them what they don't know they want, you'll never make anything new.
Yeah. Well, let's face it.
Yeah. Reliving TNG was what season 3 was all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Giving them a new TNG is what we also have to be doing.
Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't for Discovery, we wouldn't have Section 31. We wouldn't have Strange New Worlds. We wouldn't have Prodigy. We wouldn't have Lower Decks. We wouldn't have Starfleet Academy that's coming out soon. Without... Yes,
which, by the way...
looks is going to be incredible from what I've seen.
Look at that cast.
I know.
Look at that.
Nuts. I
How
can't
did
wait.
they even get Paul Giamatti and Hunter? How did they get them? I thought you had no money.
Well, that's where the money for your film went. It went to the Academy. Yeah.
I was just going to say. But I think it's about, there's this great clip that we shared on our socials recently of Paul Giamatti doing an interview, I think with an Irish...
it was an RTE.
Thank you. And he said that he takes roles because he likes a good story. And that really resonated with me because, and you've said this too today in our time chatting, that it's about writing good stories and telling them in a good way. And I think Trek has a history of excelling at that for the most part. Yes, we can find those episodes we don't like, or we can find these moments in the Trek history. But I think that's why actors of that level, like who demand that higher price tag, I mean, Michelle Yeoh won an Oscar and still wanted to play Giorgio.
Yeah.
And I think she
more than that.
Did it yeah.
Go on. Sorry.
I don't know. I just think that there's something to be said about the characters that are created for this universe. There's something to be said about the experience actors have on the sets of these shows and these movies. And I think that has a very high precedence in the entertainment world.
They put together an unbelievable cast for this. I mean, Omari Hardwick is a living legend, one of the most talented men I've ever worked with, and a brother to me. I love that man. Like the captain of our captains, Casey Roll, I think is now my favorite actress. I said this to her many, many times.
She's great.
She's phenomenal. You didn't get to see so many of the scenes that were cut. For time, like there are so many.
We need an extended version.
I need the director's cut.
Yeah.
Again, they would have. I mean, I hope that they do one day, but again, they'd have to pay people then, which I
know.
I think maybe when Paramount goes the way of the dodo, if that's what's going to happen, then all those contracts are null and void, and they can do what they want. At that point, maybe they can release it. That would be great.
Yeah.
Because the things that Casey did, and the things that Sam did, and the things that Sven.
Right.
They did such amazing sequences and scenes that were all cut just to try and fit within this arbitrary 95 minutes so that they wouldn't have to pay everybody a higher fee. And, talking about like Michelle and Amari and Umberly and James now, like James was unbelievable as San. He had so little to do. Yeah, I think he only had like 4 or 5 scenes where it was him, and he was amazing. Miku, as young George, everybody.
Yes.
Yep.
There's some of the most talented and brilliant actors I've ever had the luck to work with, and I've worked with a lot of really, really good ones. And if we don't get to make more of these, it's a real loss, because I don't think you're going to get that kind of chemistry on many shows. And I think a show about Rachel Garrett becoming the captain of the Enterprise and how Georgiou is affecting the past, present, and future of Trek. Sign me up, like, all day long. Like, it's, even for Zeph, like, I've talked many times about him being paraplegic and the suit is his wheelchair, and exploring. Oh, did you not know that one?
No, I didn't heard that one.
Okay. Well,
I'm intrigued though, so let's hear it.
so it wasn't written that way, but Craig Sweeney and I got together whilst we were filming. We wanted to flesh out a backstory for him. So the idea was that he's a genius engineer. He's not very smart in any other capacity. Like most people, he has his exception. He's an incredible engineer, and he was into body augmenting, and he was doing all these things to his body to make himself stronger, faster, better. And he screwed up his own spine. And this is in a time, this is in the time of Pike, and this is in the pre-Pike, but this is the time where these things couldn't be treated. Even Worf couldn't be treated.
Yeah.
So what he made himself paraplegic. We were thinking quadriplegic, but we went paraplegic. The idea was that Alok came around, found this genius engineer that was so good at building things and stuff like that, and got him Section 31 technology to build this suit. And the suit is essentially, it breathes for him, it runs for him. It's his wheelchair. And it was, for me, because I wanted to do a story about ableism in Star Trek, because other than Pike in his wheelchair, other than Geordi with his visor, physical ableism hasn't really been addressed in Trek. It's kind of
one character in DS9, don't you? Can't walk. I can't remember her name now.
No, but she had the anti-gravity room, the station. Yeah. I can't remember that episode.
Yes. But like,
you're right. That's it.
But that's it. We've never really, like, for me as an autistic person, when I see Data and Spock and Odo, and to a lesser degree the Doctor, I see autistic representation. I see myself in those characters. They're struggling to understand what it means to be human. They're on the outside of every joke. They don't understand so many things. They're just always on the outside looking in, trying to understand what it means to be a normal person.
Yeah.
So I see that. I don't see a lot of representation for the physically disabled on Trek. So I wanted to move down that line of him being, this suit being his wheelchair, of how important wheelchairs are to people to feel like they are as much a part of society as anybody else, and then to have the conversation at some point of who is he without the suit. Like, when the suit breaks, when it doesn't work, when all of these things happen in future episodes, who is Zeph without the suit? What is his sense of worth? What is his value to himself as somebody that cannot run through walls or pick up things? And it made it so much more horrifying, this thing that he uses to be mobile being the thing that kills him. Made it so much a much darker thing. So Craig and I created this backstory, and I'm desperate to put that on screen. Desperate.
But see,
now
that
makes
to me,
sense, then. That now makes sense. When you say you're referring to the suit, you're referring to Zeph, you're referring to me. I am the suit. And now that makes more sense.
And I know I'm going back and I'm beating a dead horse here, so to speak, but in Picard season 3, they put out these little, I don't know what they even called them, but they went out on social media through Star Trek, and they were these little cards of like bio cards on all the characters that were going to be in season 3. And it gave hints of those backstories. If we'd had that for Section 31.
Yeah.
different take by everybody going into that movie.
Yeah.
Because they immediately would have had an interest in each of the characters. And that's the little things I'm talking about that I think those, yes, they cost money. They have to be made, but they also can be done fairly cheaply in the comparison to some of the big normal advertisements we're used to. And that's the kind of things fans need to get an attachment to what they're going to see.
I agree. I mean, I absolutely agree. But that's nothing to do with Alex or Tunde or any of
Correct.
the crew or any of the
Correct.
actors. And it's probably also just another casualty of firing so many people so often. And
Yes.
But yeah,
that's my point, though, is I think that some of these very aggressive opinions that are out there, I think they're misdirected.
Yes.
Because I think they're focused on Kurtzman just because he's the Trek guy. But really, it's Paramount.
I wonder if Brannon ever felt any of that stuff when he was like, I mean, I know the internet didn't exist back then.
Right.
But like, I wonder if Brannon ever felt like if he ever went to conventions or anything like that, where he ever felt the ire of people that hated TNG. Like,
Well, that's interesting.
What the weight would have been for him, because he is basically the same role that Alex has now. And you know, I'm really hopeful that in the same way that everybody turns around and loves the old Star Treks, that everybody will love Alex and appreciate what Alex has done at the same time.
Yeah.
But literally, it's only Gene, Brannon, and Alex that have ever sat in that center seat of the franchise, really. So I'd be curious. I'd love for the three of them to sit.
Rick Berman.
Bourbon, yeah.
Well, Brannon was
Well, he was writer and producer and then eventually showrunner for season 7
of
Voyager.
I think
he was on. Berman did TNG.
Yeah. Did he?
He's gonna.
I'm getting my people mixed up.
Yeah, because Rick Berman
wrote a lot of TNG, didn't he?
He wrote.
Yeah,
on the TNG.
Right. Okay.
But Rick Berman was essentially the previous Alex Kurtzman, as it were.
Yes. Yeah.
Because he ran Star Trek after Gene died.
So Brannon only wrote 24 of TNG. Again, I'm wrong. But basically, Rick Berman.
We knew what you meant.
All of those basically should sit in a round table and have a conversation, because I don't think anybody else can really understand the pressures.
No.
Yeah, that would be an interesting round table to be.
I bet they would all just hold hands and cry.
Maybe a little.
Yeah.
Shared experience. There's a lot to be said for that.
Yep.
I am incredibly grateful for this experience, regardless of how it's being received, how it will end up being received, or if there is 100 more episodes of Section 31 or one more movie, whatever it is. I'm incredibly grateful for it, and I'm really proud of it. And I'm really proud of the team and the actors and the crew. This was much like when we did World of Warcraft, we did the movie, which again, because it wasn't what people expected, they shot it down. Now
that was a great movie, to be fair.
10 years later, it's getting the love that it should have got back then. The same when it came out, everyone hated it, and then suddenly it becomes a pop culture favorite. But like, the people working on Warcraft were doing it for nothing.
Yeah.
Because they were every single one of them, from Duncan to me, every single one of them was a Warcraft player. And everybody turned down better paying jobs to come and work on Warcraft. Well, this is the same way. Yeah. Star Trek was people doing it for no money, for the love of Star Trek, just trying so much to give new Star Trek content and give the fans what they don't know they want. And that is incredible. I'm incredibly proud to be part of a community and a team that tried to do something like that.
Well, we need voices like yours, Rob, to be louder for the positive parts of Trek.
Yeah.
And we have to continue to lead that charge, you know.
I would kind of spin that another way. We all just need to be louder for the positive parts of it and drown out that 5% that just want to sit there and be miserable.
You need to just make the 5% real.
All Trek is good Trek.
Yeah.
All Trek is good Trek. I don't, regardless.
All Trek is good Trek for someone.
Exactly.
Yes.
Let's go with that.
Not a visitor.
Well,
I
I always go with the case of you either like Star Trek or you're wrong.
I mean, yes, correct.
I can't argue that.
I love my my mum and dad, but they're not perfect.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Everyone's got their pitfalls somewhere.
Not apart from us three, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously.
Yes, absolutely. We are
Obviously.
perfect in every way.
What other questions you got? Because we're going up to 2 hours. So
I know.
Yeah.
So who's your favorite Trek character?
I
know the answer to this one already, but
main cast or
any.
including episodics?
Any.
It's Moriarty.
Yeah. Nice.
David.
Oh,
My brain is going Duke. And it's
you just.
David D. Something. David.
Daniel Davies.
Thank you.
Was it?
Daniel Davis.
Daniel Davis. Daniel Davis. Yeah, Moriarty. I thought was an epic character. The first character that really held its own against Picard morally. Made Picard question his moral standings and all of those kind of things. And all he wanted as a great literary villain was life and freedom and choice and to take his Lady Jane Grey out to survive. And that was a perfect example of taking a villain and humanizing them and empathizing with them. And that's Section 31 summed up right there. Also, if we're sticking with incidental characters, I know we're not, but I am. There was an actor in the first Private Eye episode where Picard goes back and he's being
the PI episodes. Yes.
Yeah.
God.
Why can't I remember anything today?
The villain in that, Red.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Dixon Hill. There we go.
Dixon Hill.
Dixon.
But Red, Big Red, the villain in that guy, that bald gangster, that guy was so good. I mean, such a high level performance in that episode. He was excellent. And then if we're not doing that, we're going to go with Data.
I thought that's where you'd go.
Yeah.
I thought so.
Data is me.
Mm-hmm.
I see myself in Data every single time he doesn't get the joke and doesn't have emotions. I absolutely see it. Like growing up, incredibly important to me.
Yeah. That's awesome.
If you had the opportunity, let's say you had a time machine, and the answer was yes, if you could play any character in Star Trek, who would it be?
It's crushing because you don't want to remove any of them.
No.
In any Star Trek?
Any.
Mm-hmm.
If you had a time machine and could go back tomorrow.
All right.
You got it.
I'm not removing any of the main cast.
Okay.
I'm just not. I refuse point blank to do that. However, there is a character that, even though it was played perfectly, brilliantly, and magically, I think I'd have smashed out the park. And it's Khan. I would.
Wow.
Ricardo Montalban, amazing.
Yes.
Amazing. But if I could have played Khan, even in Into Darkness, like I was never auditioned for it or anything like that, and Benedict was fine. But like again, I want to be Khan. I want to be an augment. I want to be that ultimate shark, that great white in the water, that ultimate threat to the antithesis of Kirk. They're equally as powerful, equally as smarter, better, 10% better than Kirk in every respect, but still loses. Give me that.
Maybe we need a fan film. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm too old now.
Never say never.
You give me a time machine.
True.
So, Rob, what's next for you then?
Nothing at the minute.
Retirement.
I mean, I was just offered a job that would have been the next year of my life. And I spoke to Tunde and said, what are the chances we do more of these? And he said, we won't know for 3 or 4 months, depending on the numbers. So I turned the job down.
Wow.
I am going to keep myself open as much as possible, unless it's, a movie or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I want to do more Section 31. And right now I have nothing lined up, and I haven't had nothing lined up for a few years now. So it's just like I get to go and just be fat and couch, not work out. And I'm going to put on some serious weight. I'm going to really commit to doing that over the next and then just wait. And if we do more Trek, great. That's what I want. If we don't, then we'll go looking and cry every day.
Obviously, they are working on Strange New Worlds and Academy, so you never know.
Different eras for me.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think Zeph would be able to go
into TOS era.
Yeah, you're not going into the past and not going into the very distant future.
Oh, imagine 32nd century. Imagine the augments you could have with that.
32nd century Zeph would be cured immediately and be absolutely fine, and just be like,
Well, and Picardo's there as the doctor, so he could just take care of all that. So
yeah, I want to find out how they're doing that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
What's the storyline there? Because you're not. Cause I know that. I remember in Voyager when they met the doctor.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. So it's obviously not him.
Yeah.
Has he frozen himself? Is it a clone? Like, is it, or is it?
He's still a hologram, though, isn't he?
He's an EMH.
He's still a hologram.
Yeah.
Oh, so it is Voyager's doctor.
It is the EMH. Yeah. Well, that's what we understand. He is the EMH.
That's what we're telling ourselves.
Oh, they're just gonna find a remnant of something, aren't they? And
his hollow emitter's just sitting there somewhere in storage.
Yeah, and he's going to turn it on, and he's going to be like, "I've inexplicably aged. What happened?"
Please state the nature of the medical emergency.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be brilliant.
When they screen that, that's going to get the biggest cheer, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
that's going to be the. There's a couple of other series that I would love to see. I would love to see a young Georgiou. I think that's phenomenal. I'd like to see who Zeph is in the Terran Empire.
Mirror universe Zeph.
Well, my pitch for that is, like, if there is a Zeph in the Terran Empire, he's still a genius engineer. I think he would be imprisoned by the Terrans. He would be down in a dungeon somewhere like Hephaestus, just making genius contraptions of war that they're using, and he's just being treated like a slave. And I think that would be really cool and really fun to do.
Well, I wonder if he would almost be like Mirror Universe Stamets.
Yeah.
How you know how Stamets is kind of locked away, isn't he? He's working on his thing, and
it would be like that.
Yeah,
because he's not. I'm not. Zeph is not a social butterfly.
Is he not? Funny.
No, I don't think he really knows how to socialize with people. I don't think he would. That's why he's in Section 30. That's why he's in Section 31. But I just think that there are so many opportunities, because it's such an interesting thing they've done. Because when Spock was originally, the Terran invading, they were just evil. They were just, all that was bad was good, all that was good was bad, and he was just pure evil.
And they grew a goatee.
And goatees are evil, as we know. And what they've done over the years is show that they're just people. They're just trapped in a nationalist ideology. Essentially, they are the man in the high tower. They are what happens if Hitler won and then carried on, and then the Federation was a baby of that took over and just puts human first and then enslaves everybody. Yeah. Which is why the argument about can you redeem Georgiou is interesting, which it shouldn't be, because you can't redeem Hitler and you can't redeem Assad. No. You can't redeem Khomeini. You can't redeem these people. But at the same time, if you're a dog raised in a fight ring, is it your fault you're violent?
No.
No, it's nature versus nurture. And if killing millions of people is good, can you how much of the blame is on the culture? How much of the blame is on Giorgio? I think it's really interesting. And so to do a TV series that was based in that world, it gives us real kind of questions to explore that, which is what Star Trek should always be about.
Yeah, exactly. That's an interesting one. Rob, thank you so much. This has been one hell of an episode. I've really enjoyed this one. Really have.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're in the Woking area, let me know. We'll go and get coffee.
Mate, I am down there all the time, and I will.
Awesome. Well, I have one final question, which is, Rob Kazinsky, what does Star Trek mean to you?
I'm just going to give the same speech I've given so many times. I get asked this question a lot, and I think I've kind of got it down now. I just broke my hairband. What does Star Trek mean to me? Okay, I'm going to brace yourselves because I've got the answer. We live today in the post-truth world, where truth is not objective anymore. It's subjective. It's whoever says it first. It's whoever says it loudest. It's whoever says it most. Is it a Goebbels or Goering that said, you repeat a lie enough times, it becomes the truth. A lie, Terry Pratchett said, a lie can run around the world before the truth has got its boots on. And we are living in a time where our systems have failed us, our systems of government. Capitalism is eating us alive. Our medical system in America and the UK is failing. We used to think that politicians were the best of us and that they were leading us wisely, that they were more educated, that they were better at this than us. But since they all got social media profiles, we've learned they're all absolute blithering idiots that shouldn't have public office. So we're living in a time which I think is probably the worst period of human history. We're living in a time where morality is not, it's whoever says their morality first, and whoever says their morality is more important, and whoever has more people agree with them. Everything we are is under threat. Everything we believe in is under threat. And then you have Star Trek, which presents us with a world and a time where we're past all of this, where we are evolved, where we're the best versions of us as a species, where, you know, it's when Picard says to Wesley Crusher, he says, the first duty of every Starfleet cadet is to the truth, whether that is personal truth, historical truth, or scientific truth. It is the funding principle of which the Federation is founded. And that's the idea that we all want to get behind, where truth is not subjective, where there is an objective truth, where there is a morality that's just agreed on, where we aren't starving, where we aren't fighting each other, where we aren't dying for your God, my God, this God, or whatever God, where we are better. And if you can't get behind that, then you're one of the 0.1% of people that are benefiting from the chaos that we're living in. So what does Star Trek mean to me? It gives us a path, it gives us a guide, it gives us a North Star to shoot for of where we need to be, where we should be as a people, as a species, as a society, and as individuals, which is why I'm so adamant about treat people like you would in the Federation. Don't be internet people. Treat people the way Picard would, or the way Data would, or any of these characters would. Like, Star Trek is more than just a TV show. It's a how-to. And I think it's one of the most important things that exists in our world. And I know that's a ridiculous thing to say about science fiction, but some people follow books that you would call that were once fan fiction. You know, like there's large parts of the world that believe in things that to some large parts of the world are complete fantasy. People take their morality from books written by man, not by God. You can say they're the word of God as much as you like, but they were still penned by a human hand. I don't believe in God, but whatever. Books were written by man. All of these things. Star Trek is a book that we could learn a lot from.
Yep. I
Very true.
wholeheartedly agree. Wholeheartedly agree. Rob, that's one hell of an ending. So thank you so much. For everyone watching and listening, remember you can follow us on all of the socials. Make sure you like and subscribe to this video. But until next time, live long and prosper.